and welcome to the quick guide to Big Finish Classic Who, Mrs. Constance Clarke. In case you missed the earlier videos, I'm going by companions because for most Classic Who releases, Big Finish didn't have series, the stories tended to jump around each Doctor's timeline, and as far as I can tell, there's no official, authoritative, agreed upon timeline for adventures. So I've separated them out by companion, hopefully it'll make things easier for everyone, and make it harder for me to miss any stories. Constance Clarke, or Mrs. Clarke if you're the Doctor, was/is played by Miranda Raisin. I said was/is because while I'm sure she will be back, they've not announced anything yet.
What a stroke of luck!
Anyway, she's played by Miranda Raisin, the extremely prolific film, TV and voice actor. As a Doctor Who fan, the chances are you've already seen her play Tallulah in New Who.
Oh, you say the sweetest things.
But she's done a bunch of other stuff over the years. Out of Six's companions, she's easily the one with the biggest career outside of Doctor Who. Currently, you can see her in the series Warrior, based on the concept by Bruce Lee. It's basically a kung fu western set in 19th century San Francisco, and it's quite good. Raisin's such a big name that, quite unusually, she became a companion because she asked. She wanted to be Six's companion because she and Colin are friends in real life, and they created Constance especially for her.
Hello, I'm Alan Barnes, and I'm the script editor of the Doctor Who Monthly Range. Constance, fairly unusually, came about because David sent me an email one day and said, we've been doing some stuff with Miranda Raisin, and everyone thinks she's lovely, and she'd love to be a companion, please, for the Sixth Doctor.
Anyway, Constance was the Sixth Doctor's fourth Big Finish created companion, and one of my favourites. Born upper middle class in early 20th century colonial Malawi, she returned to England with her family after her father died of tuberculosis. Fast forward to World War II and she was a Wren, a member of the Women's Royal Naval Service, basically the women's division of the Royal Navy, and she obtained the rank of leading Wren, one rank below petty officer. She was assigned to Bletchley Park, home of Allied code-breaking efforts. Alan Turing worked there, and she eventually met up with the Doctor, who had taken up residence there for reasons of plot. But interestingly, Crisscross, her debut story, was not her first appearance, because earlier on, Big Finish had released The Last Adventure, which was Six's swan song. Several stories had tried to explain exactly why Six regenerated to varying degrees of success, everything from being murdered by the unborn Seventh Doctor to falling over and bumping his head. But I feel The Last Adventure did the best job. Basically, it was 5 stories set in different points in his life, each with a different companion, which were united by the Valeyard as the greater scope villain. Constance appeared in the first story, The End of the Line, about an interdimensional train station. Think H.P. Lovecraft getting freaked out by a few hours waiting for a late night train and you've basically got it. I'll be talking about The Last Adventure in a separate video for special releases like it and the Crisis crossovers. Interestingly, The Last Adventure wasn't just released before her first chronological story, Crisscross. It was recorded and edited before any other stories were written. The writer of Crisscross listened to it before starting work. But like I said before, Big Finish's Classic Who isn't often released in chronological order. Though introducing the companion before they arrived is a new one even for them. It's the sort of thing Stephen Moffat does, but completely by accident because there was a scheduling fuck-up. Anyway, as the stories were generally standalone at the time, it wasn't exactly a big problem. It's just fun trivia. Constance appeared in 6 regular stories before former companion Flip rejoined the TARDIS, creating, in my opinion, one of the best teams in the franchise, the Sixth Doctor's official dream team. I wouldn't have assumed that the old-fashioned, restrained, duty-first, stiff-upper-lip, steely, sometimes morally grey World War II vet would work quite so well with the sometimes flippant to the point of spacey, morally black and white, emotionally driven Flip, but clearly someone knows much better than I do. Actually, I should have known better. Flip and Constance work for the exact same reason Perry and Ehrman work so well in Five's Big Finish stories. They're Five's dream team in my opinion. They're 2 people who really get on, but they're from different time periods and have wildly different cultural contexts. And that's perfect for making dramatic sparks fly without having to meet new interesting characters and then kill them for drama. But that's much later on. Oh, fun fact, out of Six's main companions, 4 are modern, Perry, Mel, Flip and Hebe, 2 are historical, Charlie and Constance, and Evelyn's both. Because her age, arguably, but also because she's a history lecturer. Crisscross was Constance's debut, and it's a story of two halves. The first half really immersed in the world of code breaking, World War II science, intrigue, and spying. And then the second half is much more generic, with radio wave aliens, and the main Nazi villain from the first half teaming with our heroes against the real villains, the titular Agent Crisscross and the sentient radio wave creatures. The Chuadri, the aliens, are a great creation, perfectly designed for audio, and they really put in effort trying to work out how such things would interact with our world.
Please, listen to me.
We are ready. Transmit.
I am the Doctor. I have superior technology. I can help you. There's no need to harm any more people of this world.
You are not of this world. We have decoded this fact.
Good. And despite what you've done, I'm willing to give you the benefit of the doubt. Our physical plane must be extremely confusing for a creature such as yourself.
Waves crisscross this planet. Interference.
What does it mean?
Up on the surface it can't move, too much radio traffic. Down here the sea kept it insulated, until you turned up in a submarine with its communication beacons. It was able to hop on board.
The infra burn the ultra. The spectrum is divided. The rays are at war. We flee to longer wavelengths, lower frequencies. Your world of matter distorts our being.
Anyway, weirdly, by the end of the story, the original Nazi villain is so integrated with the rest of the heroes that it's like the writer barely remembers he's even a Nazi. It's kind of distracting.
Oh, it's no use fighting. We need to use our heads. Here, Schwartzman, let's get you untied.
Thank you. I suppose it is too much to ask for the return of my weapon to defend myself?
Yes. In any case, it won't do much good. Here, I'll write down what I want you to say. Just a couple of lines.
Herr Doctor, Frau Clarke, if I might interject.
Yes?
Ciphers are my business. I will help.
If it's using radio waves for power, then we could stop them. Order radio silence. Just for a short while. Dr. Schwartzman, you could ask too?
You think German High Command would listen?
No. The worst thing we could do now is disrupt radio traffic. History must take its course.
Anyway, they remembered he was a Nazi, just in time to give him a great ending. He's captured by his British equivalent, who promises the Doctor he won't be harmed on British soil.
Major Harris, a word. Whatever his allegiances, Schwartzman here was instrumental in saving the world. There must be room for understanding.
I give you my word. He'll not come to harm on British soil.
So after interrogation, he's taken on a submarine for disposal.
Whatever the Doctor thinks, there's a war on.
You come in person?
Professional courtesy.
I appreciate it.
But this happens.
A wolf pack patrols here. Last I heard, it was awaiting orders. I have an idea what those orders are.
Dear Lord, we're hit.
Your gun seems rather superfluous now. Do you think the war will be over next year?
We'll never know, Herr Schwartzman. We'll never know.
I love the unemotional callousness of the ending. You might wonder why the Doctor decided to rock up to Bletchley Park, but it's pretty simple. The TARDIS is broken and he's not good at laying low. He stopped wearing his rainbow jacket though, so what more could people possibly want?
And I usually avoid displaying too prominent a profile.
They say your evening wear was somewhat colourful when you arrived.
It pays sometimes to blend in.
It was really nice to see the usual Doctor bullshit fuck up for once. Okay, fuck up for twice. And have people in Bletchley assume that he's a spy.
I think it's quite clear, sir. He's offered every excuse to avoid an interview. He could hardly be more blatant. Dr. John Smith, no credentials. His identity evaporates as soon as one examines it too closely. No, sir. I do not need to refer it to the Prime Minister's office. I am quite capable of reaching my own conclusion. And that conclusion is the man's a spy.
Because he's a weird genius, doing weird genius stuff that's not helping the war in the heart of the most important Allied genius project that's not about A-bombs. Of course it assumes he's a spy. Anyway, great first half, interesting alien villain, crap human villain, the titular Agent Crisscross, and a much weaker second half. Anyway, Constance decides to travel with the Doctor, but she's insistent that when she comes home, she needs to be returned exactly when she left, because she's many things, but she's not a deserter. Sounds kind of hypocritical, but she recently found out that her husband is missing in action, and she's still dealing with that. And if possible, she'd like to find out what happened. And she will. Later on. One odd element, which is kind of a problem with the writing, is that if you go into this story fresh, but know the Doctor is going to end up with a new companion, but not know who it is, there's an excellent chance you'll be surprised that it's Constance. Because there's a number of similar characters with similar voices, and Constance doesn't exactly stand out for chunks of that. One thing this does very well, though, is act as an introduction for sex. I don't know for sure, but I think they might have done that deliberately. There's a new companion, so if any New Who fans take a chance, they want to rope them in. And if so, I think it works very well in that regard. Constance's second appearance was Planet of the Rani, the second appearance of the second Rani. Kate O'Mara had been due to reprise the role in Big Finish, but died late in scripting, so eventually the script was retooled for a new incarnation, played by Scottish actor Siobhan Redmond. A slightly less glamorous, but equally science-crazed version. If you're lucky, you might remember Redmond from the Scottish drama Sea of Souls, where a guy in Glasgow University investigates the paranormal. Sea of Souls was Phil Collinson's last producing job before he worked on New Who Series 1, and Captain Jack's description of Torchwood 2 being a single guy in Glasgow is a reference to it.
Torchwood 2 is an office in Glasgow, a very strange man.
So if you want to watch them Torchwood in all but name, then watch Sea of Souls. There's 20 episodes. I did a whole video about it. Where was I? Oh yes, Siobhan Redmond. You might also remember her being iconic in The High Life, a Scottish sitcom co-written by and starring a very young Alan Cumming.
You are a waster, Sebastian. You are a lying cheat. You are a fibster, a fabulist, an equivocating shimshammer, a cousining card sharp, a pathological mythomaniac, a yarner, a palterer who perjures, a whited sepulchre, a cantering serpent, a rat.
The verbosity of that woman astounds me.
My point is that she's had a long, brilliant career. She's a fantastic Rani, and if they were to bring the character back on TV, they could do much worse than using her again. Her first appearance as the Rani was the Rani Elite with Six and Perry, so we'll be talking about that in another video. Anyway, one of the things you begin to notice in Constance's stories is in the covers. For a 1940s military woman who acts in every way, she adjusted incredibly quickly to her more modern style clothing and hair. Which is fine, just unexpected. And sometimes doesn't agree with what the script says she's wearing.
Constance, are you all right?
Perfectly well, I think. Although I appear to have laddered my nylons. Blast!
Well, you won't find a street corner spoof to replace them. Not in 2029.
And the other thing you notice is that the covers seem to think her default emotional state is happy surprise at whatever's going on in the story. I mean, look at these. What's that, Doctor? Magic snow? Oh my god, a Skeksis! I love the dark crystal! And is pretty! A Ferris wheel? Here? What the fuck? Slavery? Well, I never! I say, I think I'm being recreated as some manner of tree monster. Mild perturbment. But don't get me wrong, I still love Constance. The covers are just hilariously at odds with her character in the stories. Anyway, in Planet of the Rani, we find out that Constance has taken it upon herself to act as the Doctor's secretary. Her job at Bletchley was, basically, to run the offices for a bunch of demanding egotistical science geniuses. So sifting through decades worth of mail, both snail and E, probably feels like a busman's holiday.
Oh, for goodness sake, Doctor. How many of these electronic letters have gone unanswered?
I wouldn't worry, Mrs. Clarke. Most are unsolicited interplanetary spam, easily deleted.
Spam? That's what the GIs brought with them.
Oh.
I mean, look at all these. What you need's a personal secretary.
Oh, are you applying for the job?
No, I am not.
Oh, well, I'm delighted to hear it.
Even so...
Yes.
Never mind.
And among the correspondence, she finds a summons to a galactic prison where the Rani has been stuck since the last time she met Six. And naturally, by the time they arrive, they find out that the Rani was imprisoned for almost 100 years, has since been released, has been made the governor, and has been hatching an evil plan to get back to her homeworld. Not Gallifrey, she is a Time Lord, but she took over the planet of Mias Miagoria years ago, and now it's being ruled by her son Raj Kanu. You see, in Hindi, Rani means queen, Raj means king, and Kanu means Kanu. Mark Platt wrote this. He wrote Paper Cuts with Charlie, where he added a bunch of vaguely Japanese stuff as world building for the Draconians. And here he adds one or two Indian things, because Rani is Hindi for queen. Honestly, if I didn't bring it up, you probably wouldn't have noticed that. I didn't even notice it until Platt mentioned it in the making of.
I suppose you take the Rani herself as the lead and think, well, this is an Indian term. What sort of culture must this be like? So hence we have a prince, a Raj, and temples and palaces and exotica, really, and go on from there.
Anyway, Raj Kanu isn't her son's son, but is one of her more successful genetic experiments.
I want facts, not stories. It has to be precise. That's what my brother said.
Well, I'm sure she knows best.
I've read her notes, her legacy, and that's my world, my inheritance.
A crazed, petulant genius who's convinced he's a god and has built himself a giant robot cockroach body for reasons only understood by himself and probably Mark Platt.
Ah. High up on the wall, a large insect, man-sized, like a metal-plated cockroach.
What? Did it see you?
Not indigenous, I take it. Is there a back way out?
Only through to the yard. There's no gate.
Well, that door won't hold for long. What a beautiful precision instrument.
It's disgusting.
It's fascinating. Exquisite scrollwork on the armour.
Keep back.
Well, this was made by a craftsman.
Doctor, look out!
And he's reluctant to hand the planet back to his hated mother. This is the story where Constance kind of becomes the Rani's companion by accident.
How do I get back to the doctor?
Well, since you burdened me with your presence...
It wasn't deliberate.
You can forget about him and make yourself useful.
Forget the doctor?
If you want to survive, think about it. My assistant and I have travelled a long way to meet you, Minister de Gour. The Rani herself speaks of you in the highest terms.
Have you seen her? And she mentioned me. Did she send you?
Absolutely she did. Of all the people she mentions, de Gour is seldom far from her thoughts. De Gour this, de Gour that.
She remembers.
I'm Mrs. Clarke, by the way. Her assistant.
Thank you, Mrs. Clarke.
My office, madam. We can speak privately here.
Why, who's listening?
And your companion, is she?
Oh, don't worry. I'm very discreet. Official Secrets Act and all that.
Principal Wainwright, there is much to discuss.
Indeed there is.
Things that cannot be said in present company.
You want me to go? Is that what you're saying?
Wait outside, Mrs. Clarke.
I'm not just a dog's body, you know. I can be useful.
Will you go?
Of course. Thank you.
And don't wander off.
And later on gets turned into a cyber cockroach herself.
What are they doing? No!
You'll be much safer.
Away from me! No! Let me go!
Don't struggle. It will only hurt for a moment.
Apparently we are expected.
And that cockroach guard seems very unsteady on its feet.
Give me your gun, de Gour.
Highness.
Doctor, help me!
Tell Raj Kanu the Rani is here.
Please, help me!
But it could be worse. She could be Adric. I'm pretty sure he had sex with scorpions in this other story, but I'll talk about that in another video. You could view this as a Funhouse mirror version of the typical Who story. The Doctor and Constance travel somewhere on purpose, not by accident. Then Constance becomes the Rani's companion, and the Rani is facing down against the crazed cyborg genius with a god complex, putting her in the Doctor's usual position. And the Doctor assists the crazed cyborg wannabe god with keeping his throne and not changing the planet's status quo.
The Doctor thinks I am amoral. Perhaps I cannot tell good from bad, but I have learned hope and despair. Thank you, Doctor. And thank you, Constance.
Thank you, Your Highness. I've never met a god before.
Kanu only thinks he's a god. But if he thinks he's a benevolent one, so be it.
And none of this is even touched upon in the making of. Platt's a good writer with an excellent track record on TV, fan films, audio, and books. I doubt this was an accident. Anyway, this isn't a triumph. The first part, set in the hospital, is when it's at its best. And there is some good stuff in the rest of it, it's just kind of bland overall, and seems to be missing explanations for quite a lot of stuff. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Platt's original script was much longer and had to be hacked down to time. It's what happened to his ghostlighting TV. If I had to sum this up pithily, I'd say they threw a bunch of random stuff against the wall and only some of it stuck. But like I said, it's not all bad though. Siobhan Redmond is a great Rani. I really wish she could put a part in TV. As it is, she's not even been backed with a part in Big Finish since this. Apparently, there's been licensing issues involving the Rani's creator's estate, but I don't know the details. If you do, please write them below, I'd love to find out. Anyway, Planet of the Rani is interesting, but not great. Fantastic 80s style score though. Big Finish channeling their inner John Carpenter there. After that slight disappointment, we have Shield of the Yoten, a big improvement, and it is ludicrous. They land in Arizona, where a billionaire is trying to fix climate change using little nanomachines, and it's all going okay, until they accidentally break into a Viking burial mound in Arizona, and inside the mound is an inscription that no one can read yet. A handful of dead warriors, and a very weird-looking shield. Then it begins to snow, and the snow starts to coalesce into a frost giant, bent on destruction.
Nearly there, Major! Oh, God, am I glad to see you. For a moment there, I thought there was something on my tail. Behind you! What the hell?
Did you hear that, Hugo?
How could I not? Hey, where are you going?
Come on, it might be the Major. He might be in trouble.
So, you want us to run out blindly into a blizzard towards the source of that frankly terrifying scream? Is there another way out of here?
Sure, far side of the hangar, next to the office.
It's coming after us! All of you, run! They're making whirlwinds! No, they're not!
My engineers no longer need to steal your flesh to give themselves form.
They're weaving new bodies from the elements themselves!
Welcome to the new Ice Age.
I really don't want to spoil this one because its many twists are ridiculously fun, and the finale is giant size. It would probably require a whole series' budget if they tried to put it on TV. This was written by Ian Edgerton, who's primarily a comic writer, but he really captures Six well. Ever since Big Finish remade Six as a softer character, there's been times when people have scripted him as a more generic Doctor, forcing Colin Baker to do the character heavy work and get his personality across regardless of lines. But Ian Edgerton gets him unusually perfectly, as acerbic as he was on TV and as caring as he was in audio. The story is spectacular, but most of the time it shines extra brightly when dealing with Six and Constance's fast but firm friendship.
You remind me of my great-uncle Jasper. Lived alone, rattling around in a huge tumble-down pile in the country. He'd spend his days talking to the dog and taking pot shots at rabbits through the breakfast-room window.
Well, that is nothing like me. I have horde guns. And as for rabbits, well, no creature can be that cute without an ulterior motive.
Oh, Doctor, what did we do?
Constance?
Well, for it to come to this, the war, my war, the sacrifices we made so the future would be much brighter. Good men and women gave their lives, and for what? So their heirs could poison the planet.
It does get better, I promise.
Come on! We're going to freeze to death if we don't get back to the TARDIS soon. You do know the way, don't you?
Have faith, Constance.
Faith? You couldn't even find your own kitchen.
I have a confession to make about that.
I'm all ears. Frozen ears, but ears nonetheless.
I've never been able to find the kitchen, ever.
What?
Well, why go traipsing round all those endless corridors when the finest eating establishments in all of time and space are right outside the TARDIS doors?
So why did you want to cook for me, Doctor?
I wanted to do something nice for you. It backfired.
Back in the old country, our governess would tell us never to use the word nice, but to find a more expressive alternative instead.
Quite right.
But I like nice. It's small and warm and friendly. Thank you for trying to do something nice for me, Doctor.
My pleasure.
Or when Six is pissed off at the billionaire Hugo Macht.
There's no such thing. This is insane. You're all insane.
Oh, Dr. Marks, what are you a doctor of exactly? Histrionics? If you're going to have a hissy fit, do it quietly in a corner. There's a good chap. Voila!
What is that?
Oh, you don't know? Something the same size and shape as a Viking chieftain's shield. Recently disinterred from a mysterious burial mound, I presume? Only this is no Viking shield, Dr. Markt.
It isn't?
No. It's a piece of highly sophisticated extraterrestrial technology.
Extraterrestrial? As an alien?
Yes. And it would appear that it's been wired up to interface directly with your geo-engine's primary computer system.
The terraformer? Now, wait a minute. Now, do you think I've got something to do with this?
Oh, I dare say you thought you could reverse engineer this device. It could be worth billions in new technologies. Tens of billions, trillions.
Really?
Don't sound so surprised, Doctor.
The doctorate's honorary.
Honestly, Macht is probably the nicest single billionaire to unleash an alien menace in Who history. It was an accident and the guy's legitimately just trying to save the planet. Honestly, I think Six spent half the story being terrible to him out of habit more than anything else. This was directed by Louise Jameson, who played Leela, and she even cameos as the Volva. No, Volva. Basically a Norse soothsayer, which is kind of distracting because it sounds like an elderly Leela ended up in a Viking village.
So, has the mighty chieftain met his match in the Stormbringer? He wonders how he can defeat a foe who does not fear spear or sword. What is to be done?
Now, the cast for this is mostly American, and in the making of, they mentioned deliberately seeking out American actors for the roles. This was before COVID made Big Finish upgrade their tech to let them record internationally, so getting a bunch of American actors was a bit of an achievement. There is a number of them in the UK, but they're always working because American characters will turn up and stuff, and American stuff sometimes films there, so getting a number in at once is impressive. On the other hand, they all sound like middle-class Brits pretending to be grizzled 1890s gold prospectors.
Man alive, it's cold out there. The morning starts out with an Arizona summer, and the afternoon turns into a Wisconsin winter. There's no way that's natural.
My thoughts exactly.
Hugo, passkey! You own these 1,000 acres. You must have a universal key.
You never needed one. There's always been somebody about.
Oh, you're an idiot!
Oh, wait, Major. You're supposed to be head of site security. How did 2 trespassers get that far inside the perimeter?
Sir, if you'll let me finish, they weren't inside the facility. They were inside the excavation itself.
So maybe they should have just gone for Brits doing bad accents. It might have ended up sounding better. Anyway, there's a chunk of this where Constance translates a Viking runic inscription, explaining how they ended up in Arizona. And I love how it was handled in the story.
Are you sitting comfortably, Professor?
Not really.
Then I'll begin.
So it was that I rallied my men to travel to Estvik to do battle with this demon.
Mount up! Ride on! Prepare for battle!
But when we arrived, there was no battle to be had. Estvik was a ruin, its people stripped of their flesh, white bone in white snow, and no blood on either. Then we heard the beast in the mist, its wailing on the wind. We set ourselves into this desert soil, our spirits to stand eternal sentinel over our monstrous charge.
For from this tomb we shall hold fast the safety of the world.
Big Finish should adapt an actual Viking saga like that. It's just fantastic. Arizona is an unusual location for Who, and that is nice, but I really think they should have set this in Canada in the 1970s and make it about the actual discovery of the Vinland colony. On top of that, Canada's never, or almost never, even turned up in Who. They'd have to lose the climate change stuff, which was well handled, and subtler than in some stories, but it wouldn't have been that big a loss to the story. And setting in the 70s, and Canada would have fixed a bit early on, where one of the cast says that Vikings in North America had long been theorized.
Well, they kind of look like Vikings.
Vikings?
Like in that 2D Kirk Douglas movie.
Vikings. Ha!
What's so funny? It's long been conjectured that Vikings made it to America. If this is for real, if this is hard evidence, it could rewrite the history books.
Well, this is set in 2029, and Vikings were confirmed in North America about 60 years earlier. And if you want to get technical, they were confirmed long before that, because Greenland is part of North America. Anyway, back to the chronological order thing. This was released after Planet of the Rani, and apparently that's when it's set. But at the same time, this story features Constance dealing with the TARDIS translation stuff for the first time.
Doctor, bring your torch over here.
You found something else?
These runes on the dais. I think I can read them. It's getting clearer by the second. It reads like... No, it feels like there's a warning of some sort. How can I say that? I've not the faintest idea.
Oh, I see what's going on. Don't worry, Constance. It's just the TARDIS translation matrix tinkering with your perception.
What? Tinkering with my what?
With your brain, essentially. Like I say, don't worry about it.
When she spent the last adventure talking to aliens on 2 different alien planets. So I put this story before Planet of the Rani, but that's just me. Oh, fun fact, this story claims that the 13th of July 2029 is going to be a Sunday, but it's actually a Friday.
Burnt Oak, Arizona 2029. July the 13th. Sunday morning, I believe.
But that's not a mistake. It's deliberately lining up with a mistake in the Hartnell story, The War Games.
C-Day, that is Computer Day, will be next Monday, July the 16th. That is in 4 days' time.
Oh, and 6 mispronounces Yoten.
Why have you called on me?
The Jotun, Chief Herger. Your frost demons. They have returned.
Everyone else does too, but 6 is a pedant and he would be mortified. Anyway, this is a great story, highly recommended, not earth-shattering, but good, well-written Doctor Who, and Constance's first classic. Next is Order of the Daleks, which is a little underwhelming, kinda generic-ish, but fine. One thing in Who I do not get is to name a story the ... of the Daleks, and then put them on the cover, but then script it as though them being involved is a twist. But that's a trope in the TV show too, and has been for decades. So that's just tradition at this point. And I suppose if they didn't spoil the Dalek involvement, we wouldn't have got that cover. In many ways, the best part of the story, the stained glass Dalek. Even better than the plain glass Dalek from Revelation of the Daleks. It is wonderful. But like I said, this story is kind of generic-ish. It's a bunch of monks. Oh no, the Daleks have infiltrated them. Cue 4 25-minute parts of Doctor Who action to defeat them. I'm being a bit too acerbic, I think. It's not great, but it's not bad either. And it is nice to see the Daleks being forced to use their wits rather than their guns. And there is some fantastic imagery, such as still living Daleks, being kept alive in alien cow stomachs, being fed on nutrients from the monk's blood.
Observe yonder. That is how the injured creatures have been kept alive.
What? In bags hanging from the rafters?
They're not bags. That smell, it's obvious. They're stomachs.
You're quite right. They are stomachs, cut from 2 Brandalak, repurposed as wombs for the creatures to rest in.
That's horrible.
As the doctor said, it's survival. The best they could do under the circumstances.
Constance, don't get too close.
You can actually see one of the creatures moving about through the wall of the stomach. Look, it's turning over and around.
It's my stomach that's turning over and around.
And the stained glass Dalek I mentioned before. That's the version that Constance first meets, and the Doctor's not with her or warned her, so she has no idea what it is. And because it was the stained glass version, she wasn't exactly scared. She wanted a closer look at the artistry in its casing.
Oh, you really are terrified, aren't you? Boswick too.
Of course we are.
It's a Dalek, a vicious killing machine. How can you not know what it is?
Oh, I thought it was something made by the monks. I've never seen stained glass and lead work used in such a manner before. It's like a mobile work of art.
The monks must have built it in new casing.
It's rather beautiful. May I take a closer look?
Stop talking! Stay where you are!
Please do as it says, Mrs. Clarke. It won't hesitate to kill you.
If something is going to appear a bunch, I like to have a variety of reactions to it. Especially when the companions not be warned about it beforehand. But at the same time that she's excitedly fondling this work of art, the Dalek is barking orders at Constance, and there's someone else screaming in terror because she knows it's a Dalek.
Do not move!
Too late. What on earth is this?
I repeat, do not move!
Oh no. Please, no.
What is it? What's wrong?
Those aliens. They're Daleks!
What in heaven's name is it, this Dalek?
Do not move! Obey! Obey!
Oh, you really are terrified, aren't you?
Constance is easily one of the Doctor's smarter companions. She's no Romana, Zoe or Nyssa, but she's up there with Liz Shaw. Except, apparently, when Mike Tucker is writing her. Tucker has a unique position among Big Finish writers. Not only did he write The Genocide Machine, the first Big Finish Dalek story, but his day job is special effects guy. He worked on the original series and the new show. He designed the Russell Davies Daleks. In the making of, even had a great story about the production of Dalek. They designed and made the Dalek to the same height as Billie Piper, so she could look into its eye stalk for dramatic scenes. And then, because location issues, they had problems with the Dalek, and had to dramatically change its height for some shots when it's with her. They then spent ages trying to work out how they could possibly keep continuity when Piper overheard, disappeared for a few minutes, and then returned with giant platform heels. Tucker also worked with the Daleks when doing special effects for Red Dwarf. Yes, Red Dwarf. The BBC had a whole theme night dedicated to the show, and they turned up.
We have never seen Red Dwarf. Now go away before we exterminate you. Exterminate, exterminate, exterminate! That light bulb gag was funny though, from Series 6. Remember that? What? When they wanted to go to Red Alert. Your heart buttons are impaired. You are not behaving like a true Dalek. You should be exterminated. All I said was it was funny. That meant with a light bulb. Exterminate! No sense of humour, some people.
Anyway, apart from that scene where Constance was comically stupid, I've no complaints about Tucker. Either to do with special effects or writing, I just wasn't too enthused with this story. Though it was fun spotting all the references he littered throughout to various monk stories. The most obviously being the Brotherhood of the Black Petal being a shout out to the name of the rose. There's also a fun supporting cast. Nick Briggs plays the abbot of the monastery, who's been taken over by the Daleks, and slowly but surely his voice changes to become more Dalek-ash.
Your Holiness, night draws in. Please might we prevail on your hospitality just for one evening?
Rasbach, have these merchants join their apprentices in the secure quarters.
Secure quarters?
A cell is the only accommodation we have, even for honoured guests.
And when I say you, I mean the real Abbot Tanapal, not the Daleks' stooge.
Keep away.
Oh, I'm right, aren't I?
You are mistaken, Doctor.
Oh, I don't know. By the sounds of it, the Dalek pushing the Abbot's buttons is having to fight to retain control.
UK soap fans might recognise John Savardant as Pendal, who's basically Star Trek's Prime Directive as a sitcom character.
Galactic census, eh?
Indeed. You and your associate have just made planetfall on a Grade 3 world without taking the proper precautions.
Oh.
Your appearance could do untold harm to the inhabitants.
But we've not seen any inhabitants. We're in the middle of nowhere.
Allow me to reassure you, I am something of an expert when it comes to visiting pre-space age civilizations. I am a Time Lord.
A Time Lord?
Indeed.
Then you should know better, swanning around space and time as if you own it all.
And lastly, Pennell's assistant is played by Olivia Hallinan, who was in Torchwood as a time-displaced person, and is one of my favourite actors who I rarely see in things. So that was great.
Prevaricating? I've never been so...
Doctor, this is Planetary Assessor Malcolm Pendle of the Central Galactic Census Bureau. I'm Junior Assessor Jane Astor.
Probationary Assessor. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, shall we, Miss Astor?
No, Assessor. It's my first time out in the field.
Well, it's always good to get your hands dirty.
Hallinan got a role on the suggestion of Tucker himself. Now, this was just a few years after her biggest role, Laura in Lark Rise to Candleford, but that's not why I recommended her. He did the special effects on Julia Jekyll and Harriet Hyde, her first big role, and he remembered how good she was. Anyway, Order of the Daleks isn't special, but it's solid. But if you really want a story where Daleks manipulate religion to insidious ends and is really good, then I'd suggest The Elite, a 5th Doctor lost story, originally conceived as a TV story. Order of the Daleks isn't bad, but The Elite is better. But I'll talk about that in one of my 5th Doctor videos. The next story, Absolute Power, I'm a little divided on. On the one hand, the setup, a desert alien planet with mysterious inscriptions and the dead coming back to life to murder the living, lifts from the tropes of old-school kind of racist adventure stories, but harmlessly, allowing you to enjoy them without the real-world baggage. But at the same time, the main supporting character is a mostly not brave guy with the vaguely Arab-sounding name of Omar, who falls in love with a blonde English traveller based on basically nothing, which also lives from the tropes of old-school kind of racist adventure stories, but he does it while putting on this accent.
Mama, you made me jump.
Oh, my apologies, Miss Solomon.
Mama, for the 600th time, please call me Florrie. Please?
Thank you, Miss Florrie. I can take Mrs. Clarke, sir. If that would help you, of course.
Thank you, Omar, but I'd like to take our guest there personally.
Oh, wait, are you suggesting we prepare for hand-to-hand combat with a zombie? That is not in my employment contract.
Better safe than sorry.
Quite so.
Jesus.
He sounds like he's walked out of a 1940s mummy movie. This story is clearly a series of choices that were made with no ill intent, but I felt profoundly uncomfortable listening to some of this. On the other hand, Constance gets a lot of good stuff. She's assigned to translate the inscriptions because of her experience at Bletchley. And her and the Doctor get a hilariously bitchy scene where they're forced to watch a film introducing the company who are funding the archaeological dig at the heart of the story.
For millennia, we have relied upon nature to provide resources for our own advancement. But there comes a point in every civilization's development where demand outstrips nature's supply.
Why is he talking like that?
Thanks to Ice Industries, however, at last we are able to overcome nature's inadequacies.
A suitably dramatic and pompous introduction.
Without a leader,
Yeah.
Ice Industries would be nothing.
Sounds like a ringmaster.
All of our advances are thanks to our founder and chairman, Liam Ice.
Goodness me.
His vision and determination has led to Ice Industries excelling across multiple specialisms. From mining to medicine, from retail to research.
This is tedious.
His unrivaled leadership has led to many technological advances, as well as the development of a devoted following.
Unrivaled leadership, unrivaled ego, more like.
It's a decent story with some very unfortunate choices, good character stuff, and a uniquely unpleasant non-human villain.
3,000 years ago, I landed here in a colonization pod. After almost 100 years in transit, my pod struck the surface of Terra. I found a host upon landing, but the primitive people of this world had prophesied the arrival of a god. I was that god. I made as much progress as I could, but Temarian physiology is weak, the body's brittle and short-lived. As hosts, they would only last days, sometimes only hours.
But you wiped out all of them? Single-handedly? Leaping from host to host, tens of millions of them, in order to allow your own procreation?
This was written and directed by Jamie Anderson, who'd previously written and directed for Big Finish. But this was his first time doing both, and it's kind of rough in chunks. Anderson is the son of one of the most important TV makers in UK history, Gerry Anderson, creator of Thunderbirds, Stingray, Captain Scarlet, Space 99, Joe 90, Terrahawks, UFO, Fireball XL5, The Protector, Space Precinct, and many, many more. And I'm not being ironic about his importance. In the USA, he might be most famous for inspiring Team America World Police, but in the UK, Anderson was basically Gene Roddenberry, George Lucas, and Jim Henson all at once. His career lasted over half a century, and his impact cannot be underestimated. And apparently, his son preferring Doctor Who over his work was a bit embarrassing for him. Anyway, the main human antagonist is a guy called Lion Ice, split with 2 eyes and no eyes. The man is possibly the most insufferable character in Doctor Who history.
Doctor, Mrs. Clarke, we've been expecting you.
You have?
Of course you have, Mr.
Liam Ice, 2 eyes, no eyes.
I carry around all sorts of things.
Obviously a trap, Doctor. A pathetic plan from a pathetic man.
It's really not.
Where is that curly-haired buffoon got to.
You mean the doctor?
Yeah, the doctor. Something about him still makes me uncomfortable. I mean, where's he got to? Would you go wandering off in a situation like this? You are a clever one, aren't you, Mrs. Clarke? I'm sorry to be so ungentlemanly about this, but...
You hit me.
Welcome back, Mrs. Clarke. I'm afraid, though, that this is goodbye.
And why is that?
Take a look around you. Do you see these compact little boxes strapped onto the temple pillars?
Yes.
Monodistronic explosives. It's a shame. In any other situation, I'd have offered you a job. Goodbye.
Which I'm pretty sure was the intention, so well done, chaps. He was played by Paul Reynolds, who was part of a double act with Colin Baker in a truly awful horror movie called The Asylum back in 2000. When Baker found out he was going to be in this story, he brought him a souvenir from the time they got brutally murdered together.
And then I'm reunited with an old friend, Paul Reynolds, who I did a movie with in the year 2000 called Asylum. I was a property developer and he was my assistant, and we went to take over this disused asylum, which was filmed in a disused asylum and was the creepiest place I've ever been in. And while we were there, we got savagely hacked to death by a wandering lunatic. And we shared pictures. I brought a picture in today to show him of us covered in blood after our untimely end.
No, please.
So, how bad is the asylum? Well, very. I'm going to review it. Anyway, Absolute Power is the story that makes Constance ask the doctor to take her home, back to the war. And it is a good scene, but it's not enough to overpower the stuff I talked about earlier.
And I know just the place.
London.
Good heavens, no. I was thinking the blustery moon of Thessalonia. By a strange quirk of cosmic chemistry, the rain on the blustery moon of Thessalonia tastes rather like homemade lemonade.
London, Doctor. London. Back to the war.
Oh, which war?
My war, obviously.
Interestingly, this wasn't in the story until the last draft. Originally, Amar was being set up with the intention of Constance staying with them. Then it was decided that wouldn't happen and any love stuff was removed. Then they re-added the love stuff because unrequited love added a different flavour to the story. Then they settled on the current ending and Alan Barnes, the script editor, ended up writing it. Constance gets home in the next story, Quicksilver, which reintroduces Flip and sets up the Dream Team, and probably the strongest single run in Six's era outside of his travels with Evelyn. And I'll be gushing over that in another video. Absolute Power to Quicksilver is actually one of the few times Big Finish releases line up perfectly with the narrative, so enjoy it. Alas, it doesn't line up with these stories because Constance is in a couple of other releases, which I'm going to talk about now. After COVID hit with less access to actors, Big Finish decided to go back and do some extra Six and Constance stories, which slot in some way in. In Colony of Fear, the Doctor and Constance arrive on the planet Takatha, where the locals are having some trouble with intelligent, malevolent wasp-looking things called the Taroxians, who have a really horrifying reproductive cycle. They sting you and add you to their hive mind, and from that moment on they can talk to you and influence your thoughts and actions, and when they decide, you lose yourself to them and transform into one yourself. Yeah, it's basically the Wirren.
Oh, they fly now! They fly now? They fly now!
My favourite element of the story is probably a guy called Tarlos. He's an old man found in a stasis tube in a crashed ship near the colony. He'd captured the Taroxians and they were released in the crash. Tarlos was a local from the colony, a young man out for adventure, and about 5 years before the story began, he met and started travelling with the Second Doctor, who then accidentally left him home a few decades early and on the wrong planet. So he got to lead the life his controlling father denied him, a life of adventure and really wild things, like nearly being murdered by space wasps, as he waited for the timeline to catch up with them. Six, though, had no idea about any of this because he doesn't remember Tarlos at all.
It was several lifetimes ago, but it was certainly me.
It's all coming back to you, is it?
Not really, no. I accept that we travelled together, but it was during a period of my life that I can't recall.
I can think of two possibilities for why. One, it's amnesia. Big Finish has so many characters meeting before they met on TV that almost everyone must have crippling amnesia. Or two, probably more likely, 2 is from Series 6B, forced into working for the Time Lord Secret Service between the War Games and Spearhead from Space, and had his memory of it wiped. It started out as a fan theory, but it fixed so many continuity issues that it's pretty much accepted as canon. Big Finish is even doing a second Doctor series set during it. The obvious thing here would be for Tarlos to be pissed off with the Doctor, but he is not. He got the life he wanted, lots of adventure and really wild things. His dad, though, was furious.
One day, a stranger materialized. Literally materialized in front of me.
I know this.
Do you want me to tell you this or not? All these years and we still rub each other up the wrong way, don't we?
So you went with him because you wanted adventure?
Barely concealed disgust for my actions. I've missed that one.
But you went because you were bored.
He thought he could get me back within a few minutes of me leaving. No one would ever know. And I believed him.
Anyway, don't let the unimaginative title fool you. This is a great little story with just enough temporal shenanigans and body horror to keep the average Who fan happy. There's even a lovely young woman who makes friends with the Doctor and wants to join him travelling.
Is this what you do all the time? Turn up and help people? I'd like to do something like that. I'd be really good at that sort of thing. So what do you think? You, me, and Mrs. Clarke saving people?
Who knows?
So you can count the seconds until she has a terrible fate. Thank you, Colony of Fear. I love that trope. Fun fact, this is one of Big Finish's first forays into remote recording, because this was done during the very early days of COVID. So it might have actually been the first, I'm not 100% sure. It was so early that the pool of possible actors was tiny, because so few had installed their home studios yet. The performances, though, weren't bad. I couldn't even tell it was remote recorded, but hearing snippets and releases about how they dealt with COVID recording is always interesting. Constance also appeared with 6 in a separate miniseries called The 11. This was released after the end of the main range, also known as the Monthly Adventures. The original home of Big Finish Doctor Who. It's where the vast majority of the releases I've talked about come from. The stories were usually standalone and made up of 4 25-minute parts. After the end of the main range, 5, 6 and 7 got their own adventure ranges. 8 and 4 already had their own ranges beforehand. And the 11 was the first of the 6th Doctor adventures. The 11, though, isn't just the overall title for the release, he's also a guy. Big Finish's triumph of a renegade Time Lord. He suffers from regenerative dissonance. Basically, when he regenerates, the old personalities don't die or go to sleep in the background of his mind like they do in other Time Lords. They stay active in his mind, talking to him, giving advice, commenting, and even taking over his body. It's the Time Lord equivalent of dissociative personality disorder or multiple personalities, and it's an ingenious idea. It's called the 11 because there's 11 personalities in there. And in other stories, they've also introduced the 12 and the 9 and the 8, etc. What I love is that Mark Boner, who plays him, you might remember him from the Rebel Flesh in Series 6 of New Who, he manages to make every personality feel and sound different. There's an amoral baseline to most of them, but each of the people in there are as different as each Doctor is.
Oh, you could have stopped this. But my dear Constance, we wouldn't have known what's in store.
You're hurting my arm!
So what? It's not yours.
What? A half-life? Are you worried now? Now you've divided yourself into so many parts, that's all you'll be.
Not with you around. I've been showing off all day, but now I think it's time to actually kill you.
No, we won't be doing that. 8, we are very much in need of your assistance.
Wait, you idiot. What are you doing?
Just preventing a few murders, that's all.
And what's really impressive is that Bonner is Scottish, and all the 11's voices are English. If you want an easy-to-imagine shorthand for the 11, if John Sims' master was the Frank Gorshin Riddler, then the 11 is the Joker. All of them, at once. Honestly, I almost wish RTD had come up with the concept, because the Master is somehow awakening all the previous Doctors and giving them all equal control of the Doctor's body instead of turning Tennant into a gremlin would have almost made the last of the Time Lords tolerable. Plus Tennant would have had a ball getting his actory nerd on with the impersonations and stuff. Anyway, having said all that, I hated this box set. This storyline was tiresome. All I wanted was the 11 going off into the universe and fighting the Doctor in a variety of places and times, but nah, it's all set in one planet. It's called Molorus, and the norm is for people to have two minds in one body. So in one story, 11 and his one-minded wife Miscavige visit a mind clinic to separate the 11's mind and put some of the less agreeable personalities into cloned bodies. Or other things, like a TARDIS.
The one, the original self, waiting in the ghost TARDIS all along.
The one was our very first experiment.
And the moment I trapped 9 in the telepathic circuit...
Both TARDISes became linked. Rather clever, don't you think?
Well, that doesn't matter. I can eject him.
Not now I'm inside your machine, young man, and can control it.
No, she'll fight you. So will I.
Then there's a story where 11 and Miscavige take over the planet by murdering the president, and he's elected as his replacement. And finally, 11 gets bored of ruling the planet, so he decides to split the Molorusians' minds, giving them all 11 personalities like him. The 11 is very well named because he's the main character. 6 and Constance only turn up in the first and third stories. Part 2 is a very unconventional whodunit, with several shocking twists. That's mostly about the soon-to-be-deceased Oliver Acheron having a conversation about politics and stuff with his killer, the 11. That's not actually a spoiler, though, because the big question is which of the 11 actually did the deed.
Well, you believe in the ancients, then? Of course. How could I not when there's such an abundance of proof?
Such as?
Take a look around you. You don't believe in gods, then? Your book, the robes, they're all for show.
On the contrary, I most definitely believe in gods.
Well, there we are then. We agree on one thing, even if our ancients have different faces.
If you like the politics of Molorus and the same people talking about the same things over and over and over again, then this is the box set for you. It's not bad, it's just very much not what I wanted. I wanted 6 and Constance fighting the 11 in time and space. But I understand why they didn't do that. The 11 had debuted about 5 years earlier. They'd had years of stories to do that traditional Doctor Who kind of thing. They wanted to do something different. And there is good here. Mark Bonner really throws himself into the role of the 11. Though in the first, One for All, that means a lot of scenes where he's yelling and screaming at himself.
Stand back, 6. Don't crowd the poor man. Sucking the neurons out of his brain in streams. Stop hogging it! Let me have some fun! Ouch! Don't hit me!
Oh, I knew this would happen. Separate out the animals among us.
Oh, let them fight. You've never had bodies of your own. Enjoy the freedom.
For minutes at a time. In the second, the murder of Oliver Acheron, which is really, really, really not what I wanted, he gets to play an 11 who might have turned over a new or old leaf.
It's in the book. I spent 2 revolutions with the hermits of Cramnon after my wife died. You see, that's how I've managed to sublimate so many of those infernal inner voices of mine. Silence them, in fact.
You've silenced them? I had no idea. So you're a mono-mind now?
Well, yes, I suppose you might call me that.
That's not how your disciples describe you.
Why, what?
Oh, come along now, 11. I thought we'd decided to be open with each other. I know you have followers. Some of the most enlightened minds on Molorus have openly pledged their loyalty to you.
Have they really?
And Constance even gets a good subplot in the third one, Elevation, when she starts generating extra minds of her own.
Don't you feel it, Constance? Don't you feel better? More?
And you led me in here and let me breathe those things in without my consent. Oh, darling, please stop whining. Haven't you heard that 2 heads are better than 1?
2 heads are better. But I'm happy to say that this is just the beginning.
I should be with him. We should share this.
Yes, I'd like a word with the 11 myself. Oh, I'd thank him, darling. My liberator.
About time. I've been suffocating in here. Ugh, all of this noise. Can we just calm down a moment, girls?
No, we shan't. You can't make us.
Oh, my heavens. What was that? Who were those people?
They're you, Constance. All of you. Alter egos, side selves, intrusive thoughts, all given the full form they deserve.
Oh, it's fabulous. Oh, we love it.
We do not love it. We have to see the 11.
Not with that attitude.
There's even a good subplot where the Doctor keeps searching for evidence that the 11 is evil in Part 3. Because the 11 is adamant that he's turned over a new leaf, and he wants nothing more than to rule the planet benevolently.
Constance, be careful.
Of course. And, Doctor, maybe you should keep an open mind.
I'm sorry?
Well, people do change. It's been known.
People change, but you, 11, you're not people, are you?
Doctor, let me show you the new me. Come this way.
World President in attendance.
Oh, please, please. There's no need. You're all doing a tremendous job. Please carry on.
Everybody carry on.
Sir, shall I activate your crown? Please.
Your crown?
Multitasking, Doctor.
Are you going to tell me that's something you're very good at?
Every leader in universal history has struggled to keep pace with the velocity of their position, but I don't have that problem.
These screens, what are they broadcasting? The camera work seems rather wobbly.
It's important, wouldn't you say, that I understand how my people think, that I see things from their point of view.
You're not quite as important as you giving me a simple answer.
Again, I'd ask you to moderate your tone.
Oh, not something I tend to specialize in.
Then it goes on for way too long until it's a bit crap.
Doctor, I have all this
and what?
I am bored.
This is a very weirdly shaped set in a story and structure kind of way, but there's a reason for that. It was the very early days of COVID, and they had to plan some stories around who had home recording studios, kind of like Colony of Fear, which meant less actors and more people playing multiple personalities. Miss Scavell, the 11's wife, was even played by Mark Bonner's real-life wife, Lucy Gaskell, who played Kathy Nightingale in Blank. Partly because the home studio, but also because she wanted to do some Big Finish for a while, and they took the chance to create something meatier than usual for her. And I'm sorry that overall this wasn't the most positive ending for the video, but I really wasn't a fan of the 11. Good character, great concept, bad box set. If you want to know what stories to pick up to get a taste of Constance, then I suggest Crisscross, it's a very solid introduction, and Shield of the Yoten, it's easily the best of these. But again, none of them are full-on bad, except for maybe the 11. Most of them are just kind of mediocre with good and bad parts. Luckily, the team-up with Flip and the Dream Team run, easily Six's strongest run since Evil, and it's right around the corner.
Measure the mystery and the sound without taking up time. Shave a penny